We're very excited to have everyone here. Thanks again for joining us. And I'd like to announce our speaker who's going to be talking to us tonight about Cancer Survivorship 101. We're really excited to have her here, and her name is Genae Girard.
How's it going, everybody? Doing okay? You can hear me okay? All right, well, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself because it's kind of a little bit of an unusual story. But I was diagnosed at age 36 with stage 2 breast cancer, and wasn't married. I was running a company of 40 plus employees that I started when I was 26. And so I'm 42 now. I'm a 6-year survivor. Woohoo! So pretty excited about that. You know, when I was diagnosed, I started thinking about the fact that, you know, you kind of get pushed out the door after treatment in some cases, and you're left struggling a little bit with, hey, you know, what am I supposed to deal with? I mean, my body's changed, I'm physically changed, I'm mentally changed, and so what's out there for me? So as a social experiment, I decided to create a website, and it's called Beyond the Booby Trap, and it's for breast cancer survivors. And so when I first posted this site, all of a sudden, in less than a year, I had 22,000 followers. And I thought, wow, maybe I'm onto something here, right? So not only that, I wrote a book. It's called Off the Rack, Chronicles of a 30-something single breast cancer survivor. And it's a funny rendition about the irony and what it was like to go through treatment. And so I've captured that in a book, and I share that with my survivors as well. So I brought some extra copies for you guys. So I'll be more than happy to sign some of those for you. But anyway, compiling what it takes to move forward after treatment and, you know, different aspects of moving forward after treatment was really important for me. I actually had the luxury of taking a couple of years off and just studying, and that's really what I did, is I incorporated education into my life about moving forward, the importance of different aspects, and we're going to tackle some of those. One of the things I thought I would share with you first, and I know that a number of you will appreciate this, and this will sound a little familiar, is I break cancer into 4 stages. And the reason that I do that is because I think it's good to quantify what stage you might be in, or what stage the person is that you're working with, if you're a caregiver. So the first one I love to call fear, shock, and awe, right? Okay. Fear. Everybody, you know, when you first get that diagnosis, it's life-changing. It just shuts you down. I remember getting my biopsy, and the surgeon's like, you know, I just want to let you know that you have cancer. And that appointment, I walked out to my car and I did that gut-wrenching scream, that ah, you know, where you lose it. You have no sense of reality, you know. It's just trying to externalize all of this fear. And I think like all of the construction people that were on that street turned around and like stared at me and looked at me like, okay, she's nuts. And so I basically just cried and cried and cried. So that's like the initial stage, is fear, right? Secondly, see if I can get this, I call treading water. We've all been there. You're not really, I mean, you're expending energy, you're going through treatment, you're going through possibly chemo, possibly going through physical exertion, but you're not really moving forward at all. You're just, you know, existing. And I think this is important to note because, you know, it can be a problem with relationships, it can be a problem with you know, work, it can be a problem because you are just trying to exist. And I mean, and it's okay. I mean, it's okay. It's just, you're just tired. The third stage is what I like to call the rebound. Rebounding is where you're trying to get out of that treatment hole. You can see the light. You're trying to get your energy back, and you're trying to get some semblance of normalcy, right? And the rebound obviously is very, very difficult for some of us, especially in the middle of treatment, because you're trying to understand what your new normal is. That might mean that you're more tired. That might include weight gain. For me, I think I gained probably 30 pounds just with chemo alone, because I did 6 months of adriamycin, Cytoxan, and Taxol. You know, just, I mean, the weight gain and everything else that came along with this. I actually, when I went through my double mastectomy, ended up getting an MRSA infection during my surgery. And so I had to start all over with 6 months. And so the rebound for me was probably about 9 months longer than, you know, a regular mastectomy patient, if you will. So this, you know, obviously is crucial. But what I really want to talk about is this last one. And this is what I like to call accountability. And accountability is a big deal, because here's how I look at this. So here's the equator, right? When you're trying to take accountability for healing yourself and moving forward, this is a really, really important step. Many people fall below this equator and they get depressed. They might have issues with being out in the public, so that, you know, you can become isolated. You can become, I mean, I have a number of people in my group, for example, that struggle with falling below this line. And it's a lot of us. And so to have the energy to fight to stay above this equator is really, really important. We're going to talk about some of the things that allow you to stay above this line. Now, one of the things I wanted to tell you about is, believe it or not, about 95% of our day is non-habitual. That is a response to things that are happening around us, okay? So when you're able to push things into more of a habit, it requires less energy. And there's a study that I like to cite where they took students and they put radishes and chocolate chip cookies in front of them. In the first group, they said, all you can eat are the radishes. And then they had them problem solve, okay? The second group was allowed to eat the chocolate chip cookies, okay? Not to mention that they were on a sugar high, but that second group that was allowed to eat the chocolate chip cookies actually problem solved a lot more efficiently. The reasoning is that it required less energy, less staying power to just go for the cookie than have to fight off the urge of eating the cookies. So because of that, what we like to call is the elephant and the rider. If you would imagine our elephant is anything that's pleasurable for us, right? We are driven by this huge elephant. And so we're always trying to ride it and control it and do things that, you know, we might not find pleasurable. Well, all of that energy is a huge drain on people that are trying to recover from cancer, more than you know. Think about the fact that only 5% of our day is habitual. That's crazy. That means 95% is us just trying to go through life, you know, responding to day-to-day activities that are hitting us. That's insane. It's an insane amount of energy that we're expending. So if you can imagine things like exercise, things like diet, things, I mean, and I'm not going to preach to you about that because we all get plenty of that. The more that you can push that into your habit side, the less energy is going to require for you as a patient and or if you're a caregiver of somebody to, you know, to survive, to live, to move forward. And so if you're able to do that, it's a really big deal. Does anybody have any questions about that? Does anybody have any questions yet? Okay. Just feel free to throw questions out if you have them. So let's talk about some other things. Okay, so that's one, being able to push things into more of a habit, right? The other, let's look at some other things that are my top list of things to do for recovery. One of them is actually giving back. Anybody here donate their time to, okay? Anybody else? Okay, and how does it make you feel?
For me, I was feeling sorry for myself, and they brought me dinner, And I started talking to her. She was younger than I was. And she was going through a lot more. And I thought, here she can bring me dinner. And I'm laying in my chair, right after chemo treatment. And so that's when I said, you know what, I think I can do more. And so it has helped. And so this weekend I'm doing the Rosedale ride.
Oh, that's great.
Might not be able to ride it, but I'll be there. So.
That's great. That's great. One of the reasons it's so important to donate your time is it externalizes your own fear. And that is a really big deal because when you externalize your fear, you actually become healthier. So the more that you're able to donate your time and donate to others, and obviously if you're feeling okay to do so, then it actually externalizes fear, externalizes pain. It's a very, very healthy way to move forward after cancer. So I highly, highly recommend. And you might say, well, I don't have time. Well, find the time because this is about you and this is about other people. And it's very, very important that you start to think about yourself. And that's one thing that I want to address too is that, us as people, so many times, throughout our life, we're always giving, we're always doing things for other people. Now it's about you. It really is. I mean, it's about you finding time for yourself to help yourself move forward, to educate yourself, and really remember that. And sometimes it's hard because we get caught up in the day-to-day things where we're giving, whether it be children, whether it be parents. So definitely find the time for yourself. It is hugely, hugely important. One of the other things I wanted to talk about existing above the line is passion. Does anybody here have passion about certain things in their life where they're okay? Is that newly found or was it?
Probably not, but it's about healthcare.
Okay.
I just have a burning passion to see everybody have healthcare.
Okay. Wonderful.
And I can't understand why a first world country doesn't have that.
Right. And what types of things are you doing to?
Well, I'm talking to anybody I can. I'm pushing around articles.
Wonderful.
I've gone to different meetings and just,
okay.
Reading up on what is possible and then trying to talk to people who are opposed.
Wonderful. That's amazing. That's great. So passion is huge. And some people might say, well, I don't know what I'm passionate about. I have no idea. And that might be your case. Or, you might not have figured out how to incorporate it into your life. And there's a story that I like to tell. Viktor Frankl is one of the most famous psychologists. And he was in Dachau. And so he was part of the concentration camps. And one day, he would notice, people would be staring at butterflies or flowers outside of the camp, just, to get their mind off of being, in the camp itself. One day, this engineer comes up to him and he says, Victor, we're going to be rescued on March 31st. And Victor's like, really? How do you know that? He's like, I had a dream. Don't tell anybody. I had this dream. And so Victor's like, all right. So March 31st rolls around, and what happens? Well, they aren't rescued, and that guy never gets out of bed. He lost his will, right? He lost his passion. He no longer had it. And when I think of that, I think, whoa. Obviously that's a very extreme case. But this is very interesting to me, is Victor had, as he, got out of the camp, he started to look at how us as people utilize technology. And one of the things that concerned him was that technology would allow us to not use our brain as much as we could. When he said that you're not using your brain like you can, to the extent that you can, addiction comes into play. As far as cancer survivor goes, what do you think our addiction could become if we don't have passion? Any ideas? I've seen it, and it's the fear of reoccurrence. Yeah. And so if you think about that and you think about, finding passion in your life and making sure that you're driving, you have a driving force in your life in which you can be happy, in which you can keep moving forward, it's very, very important. Now, let's say that you have no idea what your passion is. I get that. And you're not sure. I mean, there are different things that you can do to actually help yourself move forward. I did an extensive personality test that looked at all of the different traits that were fundamental to me as a person. And leadership kept rearing its head. Leadership. And so I had that role in my company. Well, now with my online support group of 22,000, I'm able to use a lot of my skill sets and have passion about helping others move forward. So if you are questioning or not quite sure what you might be passionate about, you can actually do some testing that actually gives you a base, but also things that allow you to lose track of time. Anybody here have something like that? Do you have anything that makes you lose track of time? Work? So, I mean, that can be extremely important, right? Does anybody here, does anybody want to share switching gears? I mean, after treatment, did anybody change jobs? Sure.
I didn't change jobs, but I did change. I was in the, I'm a real estate agent, and I was in the NARIP, which is the real estate Hispanic, and I was on the board for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And after I got sick and then I got better, I dropped that completely and started doing stuff with LiveStrong and cancer, all about cancer, to help the Hispanics, especially for cancer, because they have no clue about a lot of stuff. And I wanted to get the word out there about LiveStrong and to help those people. So that's what I've been spending that time on, is really, I've picked this up totally, and I'm not with that. I'm not doing that anymore. Mm-hmm. But cancer is so important, and it's such a devastating disease.
Right.
You really have to help, we have to help each other.
That's so true. That is true. I think that you'd probably agree, when you surround yourself with people that have been through this, it's like a brotherhood, sisterhood. I mean, it's a really big deal, because you feel like you've been to war, and you,
I think we're warriors.
Oh yeah.
To go through, nobody has a clue what you're going through except another person.
That's right.
Nobody. Your spouse can tell you, oh honey, blah blah blah. Your kids, anybody, they have no idea until you speak to somebody else. You can compare, and we all kind of have that same treatment, even if it's a different kind of cancer, right. And it's devastating. So that's the hardest. I think that's the best part, is to help each other.
I totally agree. Has everybody here had some experience talking with other cancer survivors? If you haven't, I would highly recommend it. And there's a main reason for that, actually. If you're able to switch gears to where you are thinking more analytically than emotionally, it can be a lot more healthy for you. Does that make sense? So the more you're able to process it analytically versus strictly emotionally, you can actually fare better. There's been tons of studies that show that as well. And so the way it was explained to me, this is kind of strange, but I had this therapist talking to me, and she said, you ever been to a movie where, it was sad? Let's just say Forrest Gump. Probably everybody's seen that. And it was sad, and you cry. Realistically, are you sad because it's really happening? No. You're sad because it's an emotional, you're actually creating that emotion, right? In a movie. You're creating that. So if you are able to stick more to the analytical versus creating that emotional outlay, you actually fare better, and you can fare better, and you can also process it better physically. So anyway, all right, so back to accountability. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, and if you have a pen, this is a great book. It's called The Power of Full Engagement. The Power in Full Engagement is, I love this book because it talks about how to expend energy, but also how to recover energy. which is hugely important, especially after treatment. And spiritual, mental, physical, all of those different areas this book addresses, which I love. And basically what it cites is in the 1960s, and this is when Russia started really, you know, kind of kicking her butt in the Olympics. In the 1960s, Russian athletes were trained to have this expenditure of energy and then periods of rest. Expenditure of energy, periods of rest. Now, one of the sports that really depicts this, especially today, is tennis. If you ever watch them, you know, during a match, they expend energy, and then what do they do after? They're just walking around, they're toweling off their racket. And one of the athletes that actually was the master of this, even though he wasn't the best player, was Yvonne Lendl. I'm dating myself here. Does anybody remember Yvonne Lendl? He actually would seclude himself from his family. And he had these tennis courts, and he would seclude himself and train and train and train, and people would not bother him. And he would couple this huge expenditure of energy with periods of rest. Now, how does that impact a cancer patient? Same thing. What happens when you're coming out of chemo? Atrophy. Atrophy here, right? I mean, I still have issues. Atrophy because you're not using your brain, because we're what? Treading water many times when we're going through treatment. So we have atrophy in the muscle groups physically. We have atrophy up here. And so we need to start doing this expenditure to help move us forward. Now, and that's true for the brain. I mean, it's very, very important to, one of the things that I did is I actually would download free podcasts on my Nano. You can get them regarding anything, any kind of interest that you want. You can walk and listen to those to like slowly move your way, you know, forward, which is hugely important. I did a lot of audiobooks, which, I mean, everything is now out on audio, which is great. But that was a huge, huge deal for me, is to get my brain back to where I was functioning. One of the women in my group, it's crazy, she's a sign language interpreter, okay? She lost her ability to sign because of chemo. She had this disconnect where here down to the fingers just would not work. And she talks about how frustrating that was to try to, you know, after chemo, regain the ability to sign. I mean, you can imagine how crazy that is. So definitely getting your brain back is hugely, hugely important. Obviously, the physical aspects. Anybody here have trouble getting back into the swing of things after treatment? You? I started walking, and I thought, I mean, I used to think I was in pretty good shape. And started trying to get back into taking some classes and kickboxing, and just realized pretty quickly that I was completely out of shape and that it wasn't as easy as I thought, especially when I went from being 36 and diagnosed, you know, I'm now 42, so even moving into the 40s range was a little bit difficult, but you know, just trying to get that chemo out of your body is ridiculous. Yes, ma'am. It's ridiculous.
One thing I really noticed that really surprised me was the muscle. You lose all your muscle. Mm-hmm. Like I used to work out all the time before I got sick, and after chemo, oh my God, it's so hard to get back. You know, you ache more, you're just not, it's difficult. And I never thought about it, and the doctor told me that the muscle it's with the chemo that, you know, your muscle, I mean, you're all flab, you just, it's hard to get back in shape.
Yeah.
And that was difficult. The chemo, I think the chemo does a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. It gives you a lot of existing problems later down the road.
Right.
I know, like for myself, I was a very active person before I started the chemo, and it just takes all that away. You know, I'm sick all the time, or laying down, tired. So yeah, I agree with that.
So you feel like your immune system might be down for the count too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I totally get where you're coming from. I don't know if anybody has neuropathy from any of the treatments. Oh, I see. Yeah. Neuropathy can be an issue. This is kind of a funny story. I had my Labrador with me, and my friend picked me up, and we were going to go grab something to eat, and we couldn't find a restaurant that had an outside dining area. And finally, we found this Mexican food restaurant, and I told my friend's child, who's like about 10 years old, to put on some sunglasses and pretend like my lab was a seeing eye dog. And at the time, I was going through chemo and wasn't feeling that well, and it just made me laugh because we were walking through. I said, "Excuse me, do you allow seeing eye dogs?" And they're like, "Oh, sure, sure." And I was like, "All right, well, we just want to go out to the porch." So we're walking through the restaurant. Here's my Labrador, like, eating every chip and everything off the floor known to man. I was like, gosh, I think we're busted. But, going through treatment, though, I remember trying to stay away from a lot of the public places. One of my friends wanted me to go to a UT game, and I don't know if you've ever seen the alumni room. All I could see was germs. I was like, I cannot go in there. I'm sorry, but it's just not happening. So, but anyway, another feature of accountability is education, right? I mean, you're here today, you're moving forward, you're looking for ways to, tackle this and move forward. And education's really huge. Not only can it help with the, the brain issues that we deal with chemo, but, and I highly, highly recommend getting off your comfort zone. I mean, I took this cooking class where I had to stand up in front of everybody. It's kind of like Top Chef. I mean, it was like timed, and I was like stressing, over what it was going to be like. But I did it, I did it. And so I try to choose things that, kind of catapult me forward, and things that challenge myself, because I do want to move forward, and I want to challenge myself and become better. And so huge, huge, huge education. Other one's creativity. Anybody doing anything in here that's stimulating their creativity, or anything that you guys are involved with where you're making something or doing something? That is a really, really big one. I highly, highly recommend doing something creative. Well, Genae, I can't paint, I can't draw, I can't do any of these things. It's okay. It's okay. It could be anything. Good buddy of mine, she's a dancer, and I met with her a year ago, and she's like, you know what? I'm going to create a dance that's going to reflect my breast cancer experience. I was like, wow, that's pretty ambitious. And that's exactly what she did. In fact, it's going on this weekend. It took her a year. It's called the Materiality of Impermanence. And it took her a year to do it, but she completed it, and it is absolutely fantastic. But that was her way of externalizing what she was going through, and it allows her to move forward, but also express herself. Some of the things that I did on the creative side, I actually wrote a book. It's a little stressful to think about the fact that you're putting everything out there, but I did it. And I was stressed about the fact, what are people going to think? Are they going to like it? Are they not? And, all my friends were reading it. They're like, oh, this is great. I'm like, yeah, but aren't you required to say that? I mean, you're like a friend of mine, right? I think it's required. So, but what I did was I took the journaling that I did during my chemo, and I created a book. And the book is funny, and it's the only thing that I could find that had a sense of humor about it. And it tells all my crazy stories, but it's really about externalizing the experience. It was interesting. I had this editor that was editing the book, and we were going to turn it into the Kindle and the Nook form of the book. And she's like, I think you should rewrite this. And I was like, really? Okay, why? She's, well, it needs a little work. So I sat down and I was listening to David Sedaris at the time, who's another author, and love his stuff. And I was listening to one of his audiobooks that was written before this other one, Engulfed in Flames. And I was listening and I thought, man, this book is not as good as this later book. And then I thought, can you rewrite that book, my book? Is it even possible? You know, because it was such an emotional deal that I thought, you know, I don't even think I can. And I sat down and I reread some of the stuff that I had been through, and I was just like, I don't think it's possible. So, but anyway, you know, whatever that looks like, creativity, you don't even realize how important that is to recovery. I mean, it is hugely, hugely important. If you don't think that you're good at anything, that's not true. We all have different skill sets, and we all have different, you know, different gifts. Each and every one of us do. And so if you're able to expend part of that creativity, that is unique unto you. And how many times do you get to do that? I mean, now's the time. Don't wait. It's hugely, hugely important. Who here is doing anything creative? Anybody? What do you have going on?
I do scrapbooking.
Oh, okay. So that's a great outlet, isn't it?
I mean, before I moved here, I was a Sunday school teacher, so every holiday I do stuff for the kids just to keep me busy. You know, make a craft for them or something and to send to them.
Right.
You know, just to keep myself busy, my mind off of what's going on.
Wonderful. You have a question?
No, it was somebody online is saying that they crocheted during their experience, and that was something that's soothing to them.
That's great. It probably helps with neuropathy a little bit too.
I saw a video clip yesterday of she's an Austin survivor who was making jewelry out of leftover pills. And it turned out that people are purchasing them. If you really, you can.
And so, like, if you have a bad moment, you can just eat part of the jewelry.
She puts stuff over it, but she uses them to assemble. She started with, you know, these pills that she couldn't use because they had to change her costs so much. They're like jewels. And then she started thinking about that, and she said, well, I'm going to make jewelry out of it. And she made some earrings and necklaces. Her friends saw it, and then people wanted to buy them, so they just kept. And so she's.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. Anybody else? Is anybody here either a painter or writer or anything like that?
I've been writing a blog.
Have you?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Is it about treatment or is it about something else?
It's
or?
about treatment.
Okay. And how's that worked for you? Has that helped you a little bit?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. I bet it's helping a lot of other people too. So externalizing. How about you?
I do gardening, and I do a lot of blogging. I've just started doing that, and I've been educating myself on what some of the options are for me now with healthcare and with disabilities and housing and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty amazing what the people don't tell you out there.
Yeah, that's so true.
And I'm just blessed to have some really good social workers here in Austin that find stuff for me, and I find a lot of stuff of my own to get through, you know, each part of the cancer I'm going through right now. It's pretty eye-opening. I mean, I stay up some nights to 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, just like reading some of the stuff that these drugs can do to us, and that they don't tell us while we're in treatment. And
isn't that the
you
truth?
know, what some of our options are. So I kind of found that very eye-opening this past week or so. I've been learning a lot about a lot of things I didn't know, from healthcare to pretty much every aspect of my life.
Now, is your blogging, does that revolve around your treatment, or is it about something else?
It's really about for anybody else that wants to blog, or myself, about with how they're feeling, or how their family member might be feeling, or anything like that. You could pretty much put wherever you want on there.
Yeah.
But I usually use it as kind of a journal of how I'm feeling, to kind of externalize what's going on in my head.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really great. And I love the fact that you were talking about gardening. Being in nature is one of the best things that we can do for ourselves, to move forward. I don't know if anybody here is into hiking, etc., but I love to just, go out on a hike and be out in nature and forget about treatment and forget about what I'm going through. So it could be a huge, huge benefit. So anyway, but these are the main reasons or main ways to move beyond. And like I said, if you're able, anybody here, when you wake up, the more that you can move into habit versus, just a response to day to day. If you wake up, do you think about brushing your teeth? Not really. You just go and you do it, right? Do you think about making coffee? Probably not. These are all things that require very little energy because they're all habits that you've formed. So the more that you can push your exercise, more you can push your nutrition into habits, the less energy you're expending to keep up with it. Make sense? Questions? You have any online questions?
Not right now.
Okay.
So this would be a good opportunity for us to invite the folks watching at home, as well as anyone here in the room, to ask some questions, and I'm sure Genae would love to field those for you. So.
Yeah. Does anybody have questions about me or about my treatment or anything? Go ahead.
What kind of cancer did you have?
I had stage 2 breast cancer. I was diagnosed at age 36, and so I'm 42 now. So I went through surgery and went through 6 months of chemotherapy. Didn't have radiation because my tumor was small, was 3.5 centimeters, so escaped the radiation. But so anyway, the majority of the women that are in my group are breast cancer survivors and or caregivers. So anybody else have questions for me? None? So I have a question for you guys. What steps or what might you be able to do, or what comes to mind? Anybody about, based on some of the things that we talked about, that you can do right away to start helping, move forward to rise above this equator? If you fall below, it can get pretty ugly. And I mean, I've been here where you have feelings of isolation, depression. I mean, there were days where I didn't even want to leave the house, so pulling myself up above this line was very, very important too. Has anybody else had any of those feelings?
I pretty much had it from, I never really got through the rebound part. I went straight to the bottom and felt guilty and felt sorry for myself, and pretty much almost died from the things I was doing and stuff because of the depression and stuff that came along with the why me kind of syndrome. And I know now that I'm actually sick again, that when I go through and start reading up on stuff, and it kind of helps me to keep my mind busy. I've learned the more that my mind's busy, the less time I have to feel sorry about myself.
That's that analytical we're talking about, moving from emotional to analytical.
But I was definitely on that bottom side for the last year. I was in remission, and then I kind of feel like right now I'm kind of teetering in the middle of the equator.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to keep above it, but some days you fall below. But I try to figure out ways to go back up. Because I know if I stay in that at all, it will pretty much cripple me.
I don't know about you guys, but like treatment and depression meds came hand in hand. They were handing it out like candy, and I was like, depression meds? I don't think that I need to be on depression meds. And they're near the end of the treatment, I was like, maybe I do need to be on depression meds. But they script it out like candy, don't they? I mean, it comes hand in hand. But yeah, I mean, it's very easy to fall down here. I mean, it is. It's very, very easy. Yep.
I think one thing that they don't tell you about, especially the doctors, you know, they don't have time or whatever. It's a black cloud. I call it the black cloud because, like you said, you just get so depressed, and nobody, I mean, the why me thing, you know, there's so many people with cancer, so, you know, it's like everybody has it. But the black cloud, that depression is so bad that you have this cloud over you and you just can't get past that. And that's right at the beginning, and sometimes that lasts for a long time. What I did to get past that black cloud was I prayed a lot, and I had people pray on me all the time. They were praying on me, and finally that cloud was gone, and I was able to function a little bit better. But it's so depressing because it's so scary. It's just very scary.
Yeah, fear takes a hold, doesn't it? Fear is horrible, you know, to have to deal with that fear all the time, and the fear of recurrence, right? And that's why I love Viktor Frankl's talking about the fact that the more idle the mind and the lack of passion, the more that we create this fear, because that's all, you know, becomes like a huge thing in our life where it can freeze you in your tracks. I mean, I've got plenty of my friends that struggle with that, and they just can't get beyond it. Well, most of them are searching for something that they're passionate about that can carry them forward, but some just haven't found that yet. One other thing that you can do if you're searching for passion, this is kind of a really cool you know, tool that you can use. And I've actually done this before. What you do is you write down a number of stories that are the most important stories in your life, okay? That could be 5 to 10 stories. And you look for similar themes and similar words throughout those stories. And that really is who you are. That's your brand. That's who makes you unique. And in most cases, that's what you live by. It's your set of morals. It's your set of values. And that's a great way to start to uncover more that you might be passionate about, is to look for similar themes. And I did that exercise, and it was a little bit shocking, the different things that I value, and the stories and the similarities. But I highly recommend doing that. It's also a good way to get your writing started. I highly, highly recommend journaling and writing. You know, a lot of people are like, well, I can't write. Yes, you can. You can write, you can externalize. It's hugely, hugely important and it's a great creative force if you're able to do it. So, you know, sit down and just do it. Just try. And it's amazing what will come out. You know, you can self-publish books now. Very, very easy. I mean, you can do it online. You don't have to have a physical book like what I went through. So you can actually publish on createspace.com, which is very, very affordable. You can have an ebook ready to go, and it automatically gets distributed on Amazon if you use CreateSpace. And CreateSpace, if you create a book and you sell it online, you get 70% of the profit versus a regular book where you get pennies on the dollar. So it's a great way to have fun and experiment, and great way to make a little bit of extra pocket money for your, you know, for your groceries. So highly, highly recommend that. You have a question?
Yes, we have a question from online.
Okay.
And the question says, how do you deal with people's perception that you aren't as capable as you used to be due to neuropathy, chemo, etc., the effects of cancer?
You know, I think that most people, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because you know, you would love for everybody to be have sympathy or empathy for your situation. I've actually heard stories of bosses that became like they started asking more of the employee that was going through treatment. I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but it almost got like more difficult, which I think that's just a direct response or some psychological response of fear from the boss. But the perception of folks, I think that I really don't see it as important, because, you know, people are going to have their own perceptions. I can't control it. I can just do the best that I can, especially if it's work. related. I can just do the best that I can. But I really, I didn't really take into account what people thought. I had a lot of fear, like in my company. I had 40 employees. I wore a wig because I was, I didn't want them to think that I had cancer all the time, and so I tried to hide it a little bit because I didn't want to deal with the fear of the employees. I had people walking in all the time that I had to meet that didn't know me, and so I felt more comfortable with that. But I think the perception of others, I don't think it's really that important. You just, you move forward and do the best you can. If some people have fear about it, you might want to sit down and talk with them directly and address any kind of fear that they might have. I know with my employees, it was kind of funny. It was like they would come in and, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? Like, it's like at some point you're just like, I feel terrible. Like, what do you want me to say? I just went through, my 6th round of chemo. But I just try to stay upbeat as much as I could, and again try to move forward and stay above this line. Does everybody? I bet most people can have some kind of feeling about this, right? I think it's easier to put it in these different stages so that it's manageable and you can wrap your brain around it, right? So when I was looking and I'm like, okay, I'm at the equator, what can I do to help myself move forward? All of these different things, education, creativity, you mentioned spirituality. This push, when you push forward and you have periods of relaxation and push forward, it actually strengthens you physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. All of those different areas, if you're able to push forward and then recoil and relax and push forward and relax. The more you're able to do that, the more that you're, more sustenance that you're going to get, and the stronger that you're going to become. Example of that physically for me is I've been taking Pilates, and the instructor's this tiny girl who, is really unassuming. And I was like, Pilates? What, the machine? The machine's called a reformer? Okay, And I was looking at this machine, I was like, how hard could this be, Because, I do cardio workouts. The next day, I felt like I got hit by a truck. I was like, I could barely walk. But that was a good example of a period of pushing forward physically and then, relaxing. I've noticed that my cardio has gotten a ton better. My brain has started to get a lot better from the stimulation of all the education that I've been going through myself and pushing forward. And so that capacity, your capacity is going to increase. And that's hugely, hugely important, especially after treatment, is maintaining capacity and actually moving forward. Yoga is great.
Very good for cancer patients.
Anybody here do yoga? Okay. What's funny is I had a negative connotation about yoga. I thought, oh, I'm kind of ADD. I don't know if I can do that, bend, 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 bend. And when I first did it, I was like, whoa, this is intense. So, go ahead.
LiveStrong partnered with the YMCA.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I'm going through treatment. I don't think I can do yoga.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, cardio. And so they did it where you do 10 minutes of cardio, 10 minutes of weights,
Mm-hmm.
and then I guess 45, 50 minutes of yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, I thought I had limitations, and then I'd see all the people around me exceeding the limitations I thought I had. And so it kind of pushed me forward because I was like, well, can I, lift weights with, a porta cast?
Right.
What do I do when I'm, doing my chemo?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and they've worked around it, and it's nice. Now I'm accountable because they're like, where were you last week? And I'm like, well, I had chemo, and so they're like, okay, we'll see you, when you're out of it. And so
that is a really, really good point. Anybody here have an accountability partner?
I was just gonna piggyback on what he said, because when I was going through my treatments, I did radiation treatments. I was going through the LiveStrong program.
Mm-hmm.
And so the yoga really helped me out a lot to kind of get better, of course, and then with my spirituality, that also helped me. But so that just, I guess, helped me go through the whole process of, moving forward and getting past all that. So, and I'm sorry, what was your question, your last question?
Accountability. Anybody have an accountability partner?
Oh, yes, accountability partner. I think for me, attending the LiveStrong, that was part of my accountability program. And then now that I've gone through all that, it's like now I kind of have to really focus and work on my own and try to get back to exercising again. So I've started walking, and the nature walks really help a lot.
Wonderful. So, wonderful. Isn't it amazing if you address all of your different senses, smell, sight, taste, all of these different senses can have a huge sensory impact to moving forward too. It's crazy. I had one of my instructors, she had these different vials, and she was like, pass them around, smell them, write down the first thing that comes to mind. I was like, all right. First one smelled like fire. And the first thing that popped in my head was when I was a child, and I was in Girl Scouts, and we used to do s'mores, right? Everybody's had a s'more, right? I mean, it was amazing to me, just that immediate sensory input. Another one she had was cotton candy, and it immediately took me back to the state fair. And it was that smell. I was like, oh my gosh, So any kind of sensory input and impact is huge, and is a great way to move forward too. Highly, highly recommend. There's some different products out there that are kind of eucalyptus types of smells and things like that that can actually have a calming effect on you and can help you move forward. I also highly, highly recommend sound. There's a program called HoloSync, and HoloSync artificially puts you into meditative state by using alpha, beta, theta chimes. And you can listen to it, and actually you can fall asleep. But it stimulates all the different areas of the brain and puts you into meditative state artificially. So people like me that try to meditate, yeah, meditation teachers get kind of aggravated with me because I'm like, are you supposed to be floating? No. Are you supposed to see kaleidoscopes? Because I see kaleidoscope stuff. No. So I mean, I'm one of these people that has trouble meditating. So if any way I can do it artificially, that's what I usually do. But back to accountability partners, I highly recommend getting somebody that can hold you accountable, whether it be weight loss, whether it be workout partner, whether it be eating the proper foods. I tell you what, you don't have any excuses once you have somebody that's calling you on the phone saying, hey, how is your progress? And you don't have any excuses at all. And so I have 2 accountability partners that I use, and it's made all the difference in the world. I mean, I recently lost 25 pounds. I've really been working hard to try to get my weight down after chemo, and eating better, and just really being accountable. There's nothing like that. So I highly recommend that. And it adds the stress factor in there a little bit. Go ahead.
Your accountability partner, how do you find one, and what sort of qualities should you look for? What kind of conversation should you have with that person? That's
a really good question. I actually found my accountability partner through my group, but there are a number of cancer communities online. And so I actually did a post within my group, and you can do posts anywhere there's blogging, etc. You can find somebody, you want to find a like-minded person that's trying to achieve the same goals you are. So if you are looking for, let's say, weight loss, then you want to have a partner that's trying to do the same thing. You want to have somebody that is not so busy that you can schedule the time. It's very important to have a certain day per week or 2 days a week in which you schedule. And you have to stick to that schedule. That's part of the deal. If someone's not flexible and can't do that, then that's going to be an issue for you. The other thing you want to look for, you want to be able to track your goals. And so, you know, per week, as you go along, you need to be able to track the goals. If you're not tracking, it's not working. So it's got to be someone that you can be accountable for that will be able to do that as well. Anybody else? So everybody's going to go out and get an accountability partner, right? Yes, sir?
Do you have any recommendations for survivors who, because you've been talking about kind of taking action and how can you do things in your life, but someone who may be just really stuck, you know, and you know, any recommendations for how they might get unstuck with where they're at in their survivorship?
Well, it's a really good point, and not all of this can be done, you know, quickly or at a certain time level. Everybody kind of is at a different stage. You might be too tired right now to move forward, or you might be going through treatment and you don't feel like you have the energy. It's just baby steps, really. I mean, to try to get your physical energy back, you know, in a slow pace is fine too. I highly, highly recommend getting out and just doing something, whether that be walking or like with me, I had a really tough time after chemo, and so to get moving forward, I actually would download all of my podcasts and interests that were completely free, and everything from painting to, you know, horses, and I had all these different podcasts, and I would just force myself out the door. You know, I gotta go for a walk, I gotta just start slow, and that's how I start. You know, I'm running 3 miles a day now, but it took me a long time to get there, and so just, you know, slow go. I mean, you just gotta start that momentum forward. If you don't get that ball rolling, you know, you just get stuck. Some other areas that I've used creativity, you guys will crack up, but you know, Land's End makes mastectomy swimwear. So, you know, this is the way I used my creativity. I called them out of the blue and I was like, hey, Land's End, you guys can do a better job making a mastectomy swimsuit. And they're like, really? You think you could teach us how? I'm like, yes, I can. So they flew me up, and I brought a bunch of my herd with me, right? And we talked about, and you know, their designers had never talked to a breast cancer survivor before. You would think that would be a no-brainer, right? But so, I mean, would you build a bridge without an engineering degree? I don't think so. So, but that's a form of creativity, right? Is just pushing the envelope. You know, I'm known for picking up the phone and calling anybody, and it worked. And now they're going to have a whole new line of swimsuits specifically for our group, and I think that's amazing. But if I didn't have the creativity to like push that ball forward and start the conversation, then it never would have happened. So, other questions? Yes.
What do you recommend for activity for people that are immune suppressed?
Oh yeah. Well, I highly, highly recommend being in nature, obviously. I mean, you're not going to have to be around a whole group of people coughing. I mean, been there, done that. I mean, if you're immune suppressed, you really want to try to stay out of the public as much as you can, especially during the winter months and the cold and flu, and trying to stay away from the whole kid, you know, a lot of the kids that carry the germs and so forth. But I highly recommend going and doing the download of the podcasts so you can actually listen to something and it keeps your mind moving as you're physically moving forward as well. So, you know, I know a number of people that are going through chemo right now actually kind of created a small gym in their house to be able to work out and do things. I also have people that Skype back and forth, so you have a screen. Skype is completely free. You can Skype with anybody and not have to be in public, which was really nice. And a lot of teleseminars and webinars now, you can just log in, and many of them are free for educational purposes, which is really cool too. Do you have others?
One of the things I use is the Apple TV, and you have different yoga podcasts, cycling podcasts. There's a lot of different interests, and you can just put those up on the TV and watch them. Some of the yoga workouts are 20 minutes. You can kind of filter through which people you like, but I found that to be helpful.
That's a great idea. So they have yoga, etc.
Yeah, and you're not by yourself.
Yeah.
So you can watch everyone on TV. So. And then PBS has it every morning, so.
Right.
It's odd, but.
I don't know about you, but I just got this Labrador like looking at my, anytime I do anything, it's like, back there.
Yes, looking back on your journey, your cancer journey up to this point, are there any things, this is an online question by the way, are there any things that you wish you had done more of or less of?
Wow. You know, it's funny is I tend to not look back, ever. I don't dwell on anything that I did. I don't like to second guess myself of what I could have done or what I might have done. I don't think it's healthy. And what I can tell you is just simply what my bracelet says, which is live in the moment. And so, you know, living in the moment for me is a really big deal. And, you know, moving forward, or all the different things that I talk about, this is really what I'm trying to hold myself to, is everything that I teach and everything that I talk about, I need to be doing it myself, even at a higher level, because, you know, I'm a role model, and if I can't do it as a leader, then, you know, what am I doing? So I've got 22,500 women that follow me online, and they're all survivors or either going through treatment or have gone through treatment. And so that's really the answer, would be that I don't ever look back. Never second guess. Anybody else?
I agree with you. I mean, I know that I've looked back on mine. That's what's caused me a lot of depression, and when I feel like I'm living in the moment and I'm kind of hanging out doing the stuff I like to do.
Right.
I'm not focused on that again, and I can have a lot more positive of a day. Or when I do have a bad habit of looking back, and sometimes, and then I kind of stop myself, and sometimes you have to start your whole day over sometimes, and that's one good thing that you can do. You start your day over anytime.
That's so true. That's so true. When I was first diagnosed, I went through the whole, you know, woe is me, why me, you know, all those great negative, you know, talks that you do with yourself, and then I'm like, all right, get over it. It's time to move on. There are a lot more people out there that are a lot worse off than you, and if you can't, you know, it's really about all of those different things to help you move forward. And you know, but you know, surrounding yourself with people. I'm so glad that all of you are here, and that you have had an experience with LiveStrong, because the people here are wonderful, and I love their programs with the why. I mean, there's great programs. They're national programs, and I love the website. It's chock full of really great information. So I'm glad that you are here and that you found LiveStrong. It's wonderful programs. You have any other questions?
I don't live right here in Austin. I live in Kyle. And one thing I've had a kind of hard time finding is support groups. Is am I just not looking in the right place, or are there support groups around here? Or I came from Tennessee, so I had I was with the support group at Cancer Support Center.
Okay.
And they said they're still in the building here, so they're not even, you know, they're still waiting for funding and stuff. But you know, for myself, I think I need someone I can talk face to face and just talk about the fears and the anger, and just help me get through each day, I guess. You know, something.
Have you tried the chamber or anybody like that in Kyle? That
no, I didn't even look into that. But.
Yeah, I would probably reach out, and I usually start with the larger groups, like either a business group or a women's group or something that, you know, and then I kind of branch out from there. And usually there's somebody in almost every city that has some type of support for you. But I totally agree. And if you don't, start it yourself.
I know, I thought of that.
That's right.
I was going to start a support group because I couldn't find one for anal cancer. and you know, colon and rectal and all that, but not anal. And so I was getting real frustrated, and then I did find one for colon, and it encompasses anal and everything else. And the support group was very, very important. Very. I mean, you're in my support group, and she was in my one in Kyle, and it's been great. I mean, it really helps because you can talk about treatment, you can talk about how you feel, all the depression, everything. You need a one-on-one, somebody to help you. You can come to our support group in Austin if you want to come. We welcome everybody.
I'd like to know where it's at.
Yeah.
I had one in Tennessee, and it was the best thing I ever did, and that was before I started going through chemo. So it prepared me, so when I had to go through chemo, I kind of knew a little bit what to expect, but it was the best thing I ever did was
See that, and that's a really big deal, right? Is reducing your fear through education.
Right.
So
it helped me.
That's, you know, just like in my group, we will talk if someone's new that comes in who's about to go through chemotherapy. We tell them what to expect, and
That's what they did for me.
exactly. Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations for how, as the survivor themselves is moving into survivorship, how they can bring their family along with them? Any recommendations for kind of bringing that support network along?
Yeah, you know, the people that have been very successful with some of these different ideas have really brought either friends and or family around them and talk to them about moving forward, talk to them about education, about what their goals are. I think that if everybody's on the same page with what you're trying to achieve and how you're trying to move forward, then you know, your family can actually help support you as well. And so I think that's, communication is huge though. You have to communicate clearly what it is you're trying to achieve and how you're trying to move forward. So that would be my recommendation, is to get everybody on the same page. I mean, you see some of these families that, you know, they have weight loss goals together, and the children get involved, and, you know, they start eating more nutritious food, they start exercising together. And in fact, you know, it's actually develops the relationships even further, which is nice too. It's just a great byproduct. Yep.
One of the things that was helpful for me at first, because like certain meetings aren't, you know, every week, or was Livestrong told me about the Emmerman Angels, and you tell them exactly what you have, and they match you with somebody, and that's been helpful.
Can you repeat what it is?
Emmerman Angels.
Okay.
And so what I did is I said, you know, I have stage 4 colon cancer. It's in my liver. It's bilobal, and they gave me somebody exactly like that. She's about a year and a half ahead of me.
Awesome.
And it was great to hear things like, oh, I have this going on. And she goes, oh, this is what I did. And so it's that constant feedback where I don't have to wait for a meeting every 2 weeks, you know, to talk to someone. So I can get a report from the doctor and go, uh-oh, call her, and she'll say, oh, I had the same thing, not a problem, and then talk me through it. So that's been really nice.
And how do you think that helps you? Is there a fear reduction there?
Oh, without a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah, because, you know, when I went online, you always see the worst aspects of what you have. You see you have this percentage chance of living, and you go, hey, you know, that's not very good. And so hearing from somebody that's gone through it, that helped. Knowing that there's somebody out there.
Yeah, so. Let me tell you, I hate stats.
I don't look at stats any longer.
I hate stats. I mean, I write about stats, and yeah, I just was like, I think it would just be better if I had an expiration date stamped on me somewhere. So yeah, I hate, yeah, stats are no good.
And what does happen at the end? I mean, for a while there, I didn't picture the end, but you know, now I go, well, what happens when I become a survivor, you know, support groups, etc. I mean,
you know, it's funny.
I always hear it's kind of like, you know, there's a drop, you know, once you...
Well, one of the questions I get a lot on my site, believe it or not, is, well, I was diagnosed 2 years ago. At what point do you become a survivor?
When the doctor tells you you're cancer-free?
I say, whenever you want.
Because the doctor, I wondered the same question, and I asked my doctor, okay, when am I going to be cancer-free? And he told me all the parameters, and finally he said, okay, and it was like after 2 years, you know, 2.5 years. But still, you still have the anxiety, you know, because it could always come back.
But you know...
but you're a survivor. I mean, you're living it. You're going.
Well, this is kind of a funny story, but also kind of weird. So the year that I was diagnosed, you know, I was right in the middle of chemo, and I was going to go do the Komen walk, right? And so they have this survivor tent, and they give you a sticker that's a pink ribbon for how many years you've been a survivor. And so I was with one of the women from the Breast Cancer Resource Center, and I was like a deer in the headlights, because the woman, I was walking into the tent, and the woman's like, how long have you been a survivor? And I'm like, my eyes just got really big, and I was like, what is it? It's been 6 months. Do you have a half a ribbon? And my mentor just grabs a ribbon and sticks it on me. She's like, move on. But, you know, it's funny. It's like weird what goes through your head, you know? So does anybody have any statements or questions or anything? Yes?
I just feel like every day that you have survived cancer, you're a survivor.
I agree.
So
I agree. I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. I thank God every day I'm here. Every day I wake up, I'm like, woohoo. So I totally agree with that. Anybody else?
I agree with her. I mean, I have so many complications that, you know, one day I'll be totally fine and like feel like I can go back to work again. Then the next day I'm like, I'm in bed for 2 or 3 days. And you know, you just have to follow the signs of my body. And I just think every day that I wake up that it's another day. And hopefully I'll make it through the day. And
it's a great way to look at it.
my thing is when I have them days to where you feel like you don't have the hope, is how to get out of that. And because sometimes it can be a very, very deep place. And I know like when I started new treatment this week, and that's where I was. And you know, for a while there, I didn't think there was hope. And then that's how bad I felt. And then, you know, like 2 days later, I'm walking around and I'm back seeing my friends and stuff. So I'm like,
it requires
okay.
a lot of energy too, doesn't it, to pull yourself up? I mean,
yeah, so
to dig deep like that and to and have a good attitude. I mean, that even requires a lot of energy, more than we even think of. You know, some days. So, you know, I remember when I had an MRSA infection during one of my surgeries. I thought, 6 more months over and above, you know, I was like, I had this mental end date of when the treatment was going to stop. And it's like, I couldn't get past the frustration of knowing that this MRSA infection just pushed me 6 months down the road. I was like, I can't even fathom that, you know? And so to dig deep and, you know, lift yourself up, it's just that energy that required to do that is crazy. Any more questions online? We're good?
Just the same question of what if I was just stage 1, or what if I was in situ, or, you know, the questions of, am I really a survivor when I say I haven't been through chemo, I just had surgery or things like that. But yeah, of course, at Livestrong, we say that you're a survivor at the moment that you're diagnosed with cancer, and you're a survivor through the balance of your life. So that's just somebody made the comment online.
Yeah, I'm with this young lady here that, you know, I mean, I totally agree with you, is that we're here, we're kicking, we're doing good, we're moving forward, we're, you know, doing what we need to do, and so we're still here. I considered myself a survivor when I was first diagnosed when I was 36, and sticking to that.
All right, we'd like to thank Genae very, very much for being here and for her expertise.
Thank you.
If you'd like to learn more about Genae, you can go to her website at www.beyondtheboobytrap.com or www.offtherackbook.com.
Right.
We thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the class, and we hope you come to our next one. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.